For our hard Parmesan, the main ingredient, of course, is going to be a nut. Now, the most important thing and the most common mistake people make is that they soak nuts, because in a lot of our recipes, we do use activated or soaked nuts, but you want to make sure that you use these unsoaked. So you can use, as the recipe mentions, you could use cashews, which we're using today, pine nuts, or even macadamias. Or you could use a combination of everything. That would be very nice as well. Cashews are quite common, and out of all three of those, they're the least expensive, so I'm going to use those today. Then we're going to put in our refined coconut oil. Remember, this means de-scented or no coconut flavor. I have my garlic powder in here, as well as my onion powder and my salt. Here's my nutritional yeast. We have our miso here. I have my apple cider vinegar, and I'm choosing to use, instead of white vinegar, I do have lactic acid. Now, lactic acid is a little bit more difficult to source, but I promise you, in terms of upping the umami and the tang and the deliciousness factor, it absolutely takes your cheeses to a new level. So I encourage you to get the lactic acid if you can. Now, the other mistake that a lot of students make in this recipe is that they over-process it. You know, this is not hard Parmesan butter, so you don't want to over-process. That's why I'm going to be using a food processor instead of a blender. Now, I want to show you, this has actually gotten a little bit grainy, which is fine. Once again, if you do this in the blender, it's going to turn into almost butter, and that's over-processed. So you just want to scrape it down, process it a little longer, and it's fine if it's still a little bit gritty, or think of like crunchy peanut butter, that's totally fine. Because we're just going to pop it into our form, and then this cheese is just, we put it in the freezer, and then we're going to grate it and just chop it into little slices. So don't worry, we do like that extra texture. Now, I am very happy with the texture of this. Just want to get rid of your blade because you don't want to cut yourself. And now just transfer this to a form. Because we have the coconut oil in there, I don't even really have to grease my form. You don't have to line it with anything. It will slide out fairly easily. And we're just going to use our hands to press this down really well. Notice that we do not have a setting agent. What do I mean by that? It means, well, there's no kappa carrageenan in here, there's no agar. You know, we're not using any of those things. All we're doing to hold this cheese together is utilizing our temperature change of where, remember, the coconut oil is in here, and when I'm pushing this down into like a really condensed packed cheese block, and this is going to maintain its shape because it's going to be chilled. As this sets up, if this were to be on a cheese board, it will become softer. So you do want to take this straight out of the refrigerator. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you can, if you want to grate this, you can just pop it into the freezer for a little bit, and it's really nice as well. So there you go. Just put some cling wrap to contact, pop this in the refrigerator overnight, and your cheese is done. So now we have refrigerated our hard Parmesan overnight. Just take off your cling wrap, and remember, as I mentioned, this is quite easy to come out. Look at that, I didn't grease that, and look, you can just take your form straight away off. It's actually so chilled, got stuck to my plate a little bit. So there you can see hard Parmesan. So very easily you can slice this into very nice little wedges for a cheese plate. Alternately, you can use a box grater, and this is fabulous to put on cheeses, pizzas. You can use it in a wide variety of applications, but you can see it does shred nicely. So it is extremely versatile. It does, as I mentioned before, it gets soft once it sits at room temperature, because remember, the coconut oil at room temperature will get a little bit softer. It does firm up more in the refrigerator. So if you're going to use it in a cheese board application, just realize you might want to just put out different portions as you have an hours long party. But it's wonderful. And remember, don't over process it. We want this to be a little on the chunky side because we're not making Parmesan butter.